welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kat, and today we are doing my February review and reading wrap-up. So to start with my highs and lows of the month, in terms of low, it's a bit of a personal one, so I won't share any details, but I just had a big fight with someone I'm very close to, and I usually don't get into fights. I'm able to talk through the issues and resolve them in a calm way, but in this case something happened that really hurt me, and the reaction or the response I got on the other side made me feel very unseen and unheard, and so that's how the fight escalated. It's all good now, all resolved, and everything is back to normal, but let's say that was a very distressful day. In terms of highs, at the beginning of the month, my husband and I went on a one-night trip in the mountains. We spent the night at the top of the Pyrenees in a observatory, and that was absolutely amazing. The views were absolutely stunning. We were super lucky with the weather, which means we were able to watch the stars and observe some celestial objects with the telescopes, and it was truly an amazing experience and a life bucket list item. So it was absolutely wonderful, and obviously I have a vlog of it coming up soon on the channel as well, so keep your eyes out for it. In terms of my favorite of the month, I would say it was rewatching the Hunger Games series with my husband. We did that with the projectors. We had our own little cinema sessions, and it was really lovely. And also I was quite impressed with the movies, at least the first one. I didn't remember, well actually I did remember a lot of the plot, but I didn't remember how well it actually holds up and how well constructed it is. So yeah, it was a nice surprise. I actually thought it was a really good movie, and I was not expecting it to be that good and for me to enjoy it as much from like a structure and storytelling perspective. So that was really nice, like a nice moment, and also just like a nice rediscovery. And that made me want to read the books because I've never read them. So I'll get to that when I get to my reading wrap up, but this is a little spoiler ahead. Now, in terms of my writing in February, I didn't put that much words onto the page, but I did some work to get back into writing. I also have a vlog of that process coming up, and so I kind of reread a lot of what I've written, and I'm starting to edit a little bit so that I can straighten things up before I keep going with the drafting. And so yeah, there will be again a video on the channel about this, so I'm not gonna say much more. But so in terms of what I've done for my writing, I also attended a 1-week workshop on fantasy writing, and I was super excited about it. And in the end, I was a little bit disappointed, and that's kind of a pattern with me somehow. And I felt like, and I still feel like, I had very reasonable and argued reasons for why I was disappointed with the workshop, but everybody else seemed very happy with it and very satisfied when I wasn't. And again, it's a bit of a pattern, so I'm just realizing also after talking with a friend who is also neurodivergent that this is one way my neurodivergence appears and expresses itself. I have a very high bar for those kind of trainings, and the issue is that you will always go at the pace of the most beginner or the slowest learner, and the reality is that it's rarely me unless I'm taking like a really advanced course. And so I'm always a bit feeling like I'm not getting my money's worth, and it's a bit frustrating. But also in this course we did things that really didn't match my learning style, things that are not my vibe, like guided meditations to let your character appear and ask questions to your character. And it's very well if that works for the instructor. I'm not putting any judgment on it, but that's just not the way it works for me. And I think it's also like a very specific method, and so it's definitely not gonna work for everyone. And so I really give it a try, but we had like 3 of those meditations throughout the workshop, and by the 3rd I was really annoyed with it. So that didn't work for me. Another thing that was really frustrating for me is that at the beginning of the course we are asked to write down what we are expecting to get out from it. And because this was a fantasy writing course, I wrote down that I wanted to get a clear understanding of the codes and rules of the genre. And when the instructor went back to the things we had written and kind of answered a little bit about everybody's expectations, when she came to mine, her answer was like, trust your instincts and talk to your characters. They know what they need. And I'm like, that's what? Why am I doing a whole week course and paying for it if I just need to trust my instincts and ask questions to my characters? So yeah, that didn't land very well with me. But so overall, I still got some useful tools and tried to extract the best I could from the workshop. So I tried to not let my frustration completely ruin the thing. So again, there are still a few tools that I think I'm gonna use and see if they work for myself a little bit more in my day-to-day practice. But yeah, overall, that kind of made me realize that this kind of education is just not working for me. And so now I'm trying to take things in my own hands a little bit more. And so I'm now kind of studying fantasy on my own. I borrowed some books from the library, and so I'm taking more control over my own self-education. So hopefully I get more out of this. But yeah, so that's still something quite big I did for my writing in February, even though it was not as satisfying as I was hoping for. Okay, now onto the books I read in February. I started a bunch of audiobooks, but DNF'd quite a few because I didn't really know what I wanted to read. I didn't know what I was in the mood for, and so I was trying things out and it was just not working. So I'm gonna spare you all the DNFs and talk about the 4 books that I finished in February. The first one is The Lost Flowers of Alice Hart by Holly Ringland. And in this book, we are following the story of Alice, who is at the beginning a young girl living in Australia near the sea with her parents. And unfortunately, her father is quite abusive, even violent. And so she's having a very difficult childhood and trying to escape through books. There is a big fire that happens, and sadly, both Alice's parents pass away, and so she is sent to live with her grandmother June, whom she has never met. And so she goes to this flower farm called Thornfield, which is also a sanctuary for women. And so she grew up there, she meets a lot of new characters, and so we follow her story and also how some family secrets are impacting her life and how she needs to fight the truth. I read this for the Diversity Book Bingo challenge that Ellen organizes on her channel. I will link all the information in the description below. And so I also watched the TV series adaptation to answer one of the prompts of her bingo. And I have to say that unfortunately, neither the book nor the TV series really were for me. I didn't enjoy them that much. I felt that almost all the male characters were quite caricatures or very black and white, even though there is an attempt to make Alice's dad a little bit more complex. I felt that that didn't really work and that he was still portrayed very much as a horrible man. Yeah, I can't really explain it, but I just didn't feel attached to Alice. I was a bit bored throughout the story, and I was not really moved by all the emotional punches that the book was trying to pull. There is one character in particular that does a number of very questionable things if not very despisable, is that a word? Despiteful things. And in the end, it felt like we're just forgiving them like this. And I'm like, no, like what they did was way too bad for it to be swept under the rug this way. So I was not satisfied with that. I think the TV series did a better job than the book to kind of justify their behavior. But yeah, overall, I think it's gonna be a book and a show for a lot of people. I think a lot of people are gonna enjoy it. It was just not for me, not my cup of tea. Next, I read The Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb, and this is the first book in the Royal Assassin series. If you don't know, this is following Fitz, who is a young boy who is the bastard of the prince in this world. And so at the beginning of the book, he is dropped off to be taken care of by his dad. So he ends up in the court and needs to learn kind of the rules and codes and find his place where he is not truly wanted because he is a bastard. So he's not really entitled to the throne, but he can also be a threat to the people who are next in line after his father. So there is a lot of political intrigues and scheming behind the scenes as well. I read this because it was assigned reading for the writing workshop I did, and I was glad to have this incentive to give a try to Robin Hobb because she's such a big name in fantasy writing. Unfortunately, I was not really taken by this book. I don't think I'm going to be continuing with the series, unfortunately, because I felt that the book lacked direction for me for a very, very long chunk of it. It's like a 400 pages book, and I feel like only the last maybe 50 pages or so are actually like picking up and starting to go into action. The rest felt very much introductory, like setting things up. And I know it's a very long series, so in a way it's kind of normal, but there are so many books I want to read and I just wasn't feeling really engaged. I was not feeling attached to the characters. I was a bit bored, and so I don't think it's going to be worth me investing more time in the series. Also, seeing other reviews from like the next coming books in the series directly after this one, it kind of confirmed my sense that this is not the series for me. And I can still recognize that it was well written, that again, it's the first book in a very long series, so I should have expected it to be on the setting up side and expository, but that's not what I'm looking for at the moment. And so again, I think a lot of people are gonna love this book. Already a lot of people absolutely love it. It's a classic of the fantasy genre at this point, so there are qualities to it. It just wasn't the right book for me, at least at this time. Moving on to The Cure for Burnout by Emily Ballesteros. I think I read this book too late because I've been burned out for a very long time and I'm now in the kind of recovering phase of that burnout. And so this book, despite the title, is much more about preventing burnout than actually healing from burnout, as the title suggests. I think it's a very fine book, but the title is misleading. It has practical tips and advice and things you can do to avoid ending up feeling burned out, as I did. But so it was not what I was expecting and what I needed at the time. There were also a few things that irked me a little bit, to be honest. A few times the author mentions that she was very burned out, but that she was still performing everything well and meeting deadlines. And she was praised for how she seemed to have everything together and how she was performing so well and achieving and all of that. And I don't want to judge anyone's experience, but for me, the impact of burnout is so deep and so far-ranging, impacting every areas of your life and even your physical health. It's kind of clear to me that if you are experiencing burnout to that degree, your performance is going to be impacted. There is no other way around. And that's just because of the brain fog that comes with burnout, all the just the mental exhaustion, the loss of motivation, the feeling checked out, like all those symptoms of burnout are going to impact your performance. So I'm slightly worried that we are using the term burnout a bit too lightly to describe what is more of a pre-burnout stage of mental and professional exhaustion. That's totally fair. But I think if we are saying that we are burned out, we kind of crossed a threshold where it is impacting our performance and it's making things too difficult to the point that we're not able to keep going. So that's my take on it. That's my understanding. And so I feel that what she describes is more like a pre-burnout syndrome than actual burnouts. And so I felt that what I perceived as humble bragging was kind of out of touch and would easily make readers who are actually burned out feel inadequate and feel even worse about their burnout, because they're like, okay, I'm dealing with this thing and it's impacting my performance and I feel very shit about that, but other people who are burned out are still able to maintain this high level of performance. That's just yeah, it's I thought that was not ideal and didn't make me feel very good about the book in the beginning. Another thing that I found a little bit problematic is maybe too strong of a word, but the whole book again is more on the preventive side of burnout, and so it's very much leaning on the individual side of things, what you as an individual can do to prevent burnout. And I mean, that's fair, that's useful for a lot of people, and we need that side of it. Also, there is absolutely an individual aspect to burnout, because two people in the same situation won't react the same way, and one person might burn out while the other won't. That being said, with just the statistics and the numbers of people who are burning out, I don't think we can make it only an individual thing. Like, there is a systemic issue in the way we work nowadays that is causing people to burn out. There are so many factors. And so I also felt like there was a little bit of a conflict of interest in this book, because this author is also apparently doing trainings and workshops with big companies. And so obviously she can't really say that it's their fault. Like, burnout is caused by the companies and the work conditions and all of that. But I would have wanted a bit more of that balance in the book of just like, it's not your fault. You were put in situations that were unsustainable, and that's why you burned out. I would like the discourse to shift from a blaming of the individual to look at just the systemic problems that are causing people to burn out, to the large scale that it is. And again, I acknowledge that there is a part that is individual in it, but it can't be just that when so many people are burning out. So I was missing that a little bit, and also again feeling like there was a slight conflict of interest. So that was slightly disappointing. Also, at some point in the beginning of the book, the author claims that one-on-one coaching is just the best approach, without backing it up with anything, no facts or studies or just like statistics, but fine, let's admit that's true. Then she talks about how the rise of burnout, like the sheer amount of people who are getting burnout, the demand for her one-on-one coaching was rising so much that she had to do things differently, and so she started doing group trainings for those companies. And so I'm like, if you claim that one-on-one coaching is the best way forward, then you're acknowledging that how you're doing things now is less effective, but it's just making her more money, I guess, when another way she could have taken is just training more coaches to do this one-on-one coaching, which is the most effective way, according to what she says. So yeah, there were things like that were really bugging me, especially because I follow this author on social media and usually quite appreciate her content. Again, I think she has a lot of useful things to say and is almost more, not political, but just like talking about the roots of burnout, and again, like the systemic impact, or how less kind of on the individual responsibility of burnout. So yeah, there was a bit of a disconnect there, and I was slightly disappointed with the general take. Again, that being said, I think this book can be useful to a lot of people. It's giving tools to help protect yourself and prevent yourself from ending up in this awful situation. One lesson that I took out from my burnout is that, and that I say to everyone around me, is that it's much easier to protect your mental health when you have it, even though it might sound really difficult and you feel pressured that you need to do more and keep going all the time. It's much easier to do that than regain your mental health once you've lost it. So make sure that you do everything you can to avoid ending up in that situation, because it's going to be so much harder to deal with it once it's happened, when you've crossed that line of burnout, than it is to put boundaries up and make sure that you're taking care of yourself and that you're not letting yourself get to that point. Easier said than done. I mean, I've been there. I think this book can be useful for a lot of people. Again, it's full of useful tips and recommendations and advice and good practices. It was just not what I was looking for at this time. Again, I think it came too late for me, because I'm already past that point and I'm more looking to heal from burnout and change my dog is trying to get into the room. It was just not the right timing. I came to this book too late, and it's not what I'm looking for now. And I just think the title is misleading. The Cure for Burnout, for me, sounds like something that will help you heal from burnout and get back to a healthier state, regain your mental health. That's not what this book is about. This is more a preventive one. And the last book I read this month is the fourth book in the Hunger Games trilogy by Susan Collins. And I listened to that on audio. It was narrated by Tatiana Maslany, which I really loved in Orphan Black. Her narration was impeccable, and I absolutely loved the book. I enjoyed it way more than I thought I would. Again, same surprise as the movies. It was much stronger than I thought it would be. And I think it's probably because I kind of associate it with the whole Twilight era, and I kind of have this, I guess I would watch like Twilight in an ironical way just for fun and not really expect it to be very good for some reason. And so I was expecting the same thing from the Hunger Games, but I actually think it's a very well crafted book. So it's very solid, and I was surprised that it was that good. So had a very fun time with it. Planning to continue on with the series this month in March. So yeah, that was great. So to recap, in terms of my reading challenges for this year, The Cure for Burnout, I crossed off for my 25 for 2025 list. And I think I crossed off 3 books from the Diversity Book Bingo Challenge. The Lost Flowers of Alice Hart was for the adaptation prompt. The Assassin's Apprentice was for the library prompt. And then I think The Cure for Burnout was for a mental health prompt, something like that. So I'm making progress on my challenges. And in terms of how many books I bought and hold and all that related to my low bite challenge, I will do a quarterly recap. So at the beginning of April, I will go through the first 3 months of the year and look back into how I did. So that's it for me today. I hope you had a great month of February as well, and that March is treating you well. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye. She goes to this flower